Welcome to a webinar on reporting wages and work incentive use. In addition to the PowerPoint, there are several documents that may be helpful to you in reporting wages and work incentive use. Those will be shown during the webinar and will be available to you for your use in actual reporting. There are 6 learning objectives for this webinar: to list 3 reasons to report wages and work incentive use, to describe when, how, and how often to report wages for Title II disability and SSI benefits to Social Security, and for DHHS benefits to DHHS, to identify when, how often, and how to report work incentive use for Title II and SSI benefits, to report how to save documents that relate to reporting wages and work incentive use, to explain how to deal with overpayments, and to define a benefit to work coach's role regarding reporting wages and work incentive use. To start with, why do wages and work incentive use need to be reported at all? Well, it's probably the most important thing that a person on benefits can do while they're working, for 3 good reasons. Number one, reporting wages and work incentive use can help prevent overpayments or at least limit them. If agencies that provide cash benefits know, have current information about a person's earnings level and their work incentives, they're much more likely to adjust benefits when it's appropriate, to stop them if necessary, to reduce them if appropriate. Second, reporting wages and work incentive use can help prevent underpayments, can help keep a person from getting too little in cash benefits. Suppose a person has been earning enough to significantly reduce or stop their cash payments, and then their earnings drop or their availability for work incentive use increases. They can use more work incentives. It's quite possible that they might be able to get benefits that have stopped restarted, or get benefits that have been reduced increased a bit if they report their earnings and their work incentive use. And third, reporting wages in particular can help people get overpayments waived by Social Security. Now, sometimes people get overpayments that do actually occur legitimately, but if the person can prove that the overpayment was not their fault and that they couldn't afford to repay the overpayment even a little at a time, the overpayment can be waived by Social Security. That's another word for saying it can be forgiven, that the individual does not have to pay it back, even though they were truly overpaid. So if a person reports their wages in a timely way, then it's generally going to be the case that they can show that they were not at fault for the overpayment. They did their part to prevent it by reporting their wages. If a person doesn't report wages, they'll usually be considered to be at fault for the overpayment, and that would eliminate any chance of having an overpayment waived. So when and how often should wages be reported? Let's start with Social Security Title II disability benefits. A person should always report wages in months when they start or stop a job. Now, if they have not used up all of their 9 trial work period months, they should also report gross wages that would be high enough to use trial work period months. That would be at gross wages of at least $880 a month in 2019, until they've used up all 9 of their trial work period months. After the trial work period, they'd want to report their gross wages when the gross wages first reach the SGA level. In 2019, That's $1,220 a month for non-blind people and $2,040 a month for blind people. And if a person is earning at that level, but they may be eligible for work incentives that could keep their countable wages below SGA, they should report information about potential work incentives. Now, also after the trial work period, if a person's wages have increased high enough to stop their cash benefits, um, even after subtracting work incentives, and then later their earnings drop below SGA, or their countable wages drop below SGA, perhaps because they were eligible for more work incentives, they should report that so that benefits could be restarted potentially. And if countable wages go over SGA again, which could cause benefits to stop, the person should report that again. So wages don't need to be reported every month for Title II. In practical terms, they only need to be reported when it will make a difference, as outlined in the previous two slides. But when a person does report earnings, it's a good idea for them to report their wages for all months since the last time they reported. Many people who get Title II disability benefits report their wages every month just to be safe. And particularly if they do it online, we'll show you that in a little bit, then it's pretty easy to do. Now, if a person has earnings that may affect their Title II benefits, might cause them to stop or restart, or if their work incentive status might change using trial work period months, performing SGA after the trial work period, they should request a work review from Social Security to establish the changes. And to request a work review, the person can call either their local Social Security office or the national toll-free number, or they can send a letter to the local Social Security office representative or visit their local Social Security office to request the work review. So how often should wages be reported when a person gets SSI? This is a lot more clear-cut. If a person starts work, continues work, or stops work in a month, she or he should report wages. And that means basically that a person who's working should usually report wages every month. How about DHHS benefits? Well, DHHS says that a person should report wages if they get benefits from DHHS whenever they start a job, stop a job, change employers, change the number of work hours by more than 5 hours a week, or have a change in their hourly wage. And the wages or change in wages should be reported within 10 days after getting the first payment of the wage amount or different wage amount. So that'd be the first paycheck for a new job, the first paycheck with increased or decreased hourly wage or changed work hours, and the last paycheck when a person stops work. So let's go through a few exercises. Ariana receives SSDI and used her 9th trial work period month a year ago. Since then, her gross wages had been below SGA every month until this month. She reported her wages when her EPE started. She just got more hours, boosting her gross wage to $1,300 this month. She has some possible earlies and subsidies. Now, here's a document that you should have available when you're going through these exercises. It's called Reporting Wages Quick Guide. And this gives information in just over 2 pages about when and how to report wages for Title II, SSI, and DHHS benefits. So if you don't have this document handy, you may want to pause the webinar, pull this one up, and perhaps print it. So back to Ariana. Using your quick guide, should Ariana report her earnings for this month to SSA, and should she request a work review? You can pause to look at your quick guide and then restart the webinar when you're ready to answer. Okay, the correct answer is yes, she should report her earnings to Social Security and request a work review, because her earnings, her gross wages, have exceeded the SGA level for the first time after her trial work period. She's earning $1,300 a month gross wages. The SGA level for a non-blind person is $1,220. But also, she has some possible IRWs and subsidies, which could be subtracted from her gross wages, potentially keeping her countable wages below SGA. So she should report her earnings and request a work review. Now, Giuseppe receives a CDB or DAC benefit and used his 9th trial work period month 6 months ago. Since then, his gross wages had been about $867 a month. He reported his earnings when his EPE started. That was the month after his trial work period ended. And he just got a raise. Now he's earning $952 this month. Does Giuseppe need to report his earnings for this month to Social Security, and should he request a work review? So please pause, look at your quick guide, and then restart the webinar. And the answer to both questions is no. Giuseppe doesn't need to report his earnings or request a work review because his trial work period has already been used up, and he's not earning gross wages that are at least equal to the SGA level. So there's no reason that he needs to report his earnings at this point. Now, Ingrid receives SSDI and has used up 8 of her trial work period months, so she still has 1 left. She reported her earnings for her 8th trial work period month. That was 4 months ago. Since then, her gross wages had only been about $600 a month, but she just got more hours and earned $952 this month. So using your quick guide, check to see if Ingrid should report her earnings for this month to Social Security, and should she request a work review. Please pause and return with your answer. The answer is yes, she should report her earnings for this month because she's earning $952, which is more than the $880 a month threshold for using up trial work period months. So she's earning enough this month to use up her 9th and final trial work period month. And should she request a work review? The answer is yes, because she has just used, we believe, her 9th trial work period month. So this will change her work incentive status. Now, Ralph receives SSI. He started a job last month earning $867 a month, and he reported his wages. He earned the same amount this month. Should he report his earnings for this month to Social Security? You can pause and return with your answer. And the answer is yes. Basic rule of thumb for people who get SSI is that every month they work, or if they stop work, they should report their earnings. Now, Jessica receives SSDI and a Medicare savings program. Medicare savings programs are administered by DHHS. She started a job a year ago earning $1,083 per month and reported it to DHHS and to Social Security. At that time, Social Security did a work review after her trial work period ended. Her earnings stayed the same, about $1,083 a month, until this month, when her hourly wage increased and her gross monthly wage went up to $1,191 this month. So should Jessica report her earnings for this month to DHHS? If so, how soon should she report the raise to DHHS? And does she need to report her earnings for this month to Social Security? So please pause now, check the quick guide for your answer, and then restart the webinar. So Jessica should report her earnings for this month to DHHS. That's because anytime a person has a change in hourly wage, they should report it. How soon? She should report it within 10 days after getting the first paycheck that shows the raise. And does she need to report her earnings for this month to Social Security? The answer there is no, because she's used up her trial work period and her earnings continue to be below SGA. Her gross wage is under $1,220 a month. So she doesn't need to report, but she could report if she wanted to play it safe. So how should wages be reported? Well, first off, the individual or their representative payee is responsible for reporting wages. A benefit to work coach and a benefit planner is not responsible for actually reporting wages for individuals, although there are some agencies that provide that service to people they serve anyway. But unless your agency chooses to do that, you as a benefit to work coach or benefit planner should teach the individual or their representative payee how to report wages and remind them when they should do this. And perhaps follow up with the individual or the payee to make sure that they've reported and, if necessary, that their benefits have been adjusted. So how should wages be reported for Title II disability benefits? Well, a person who gets Title II benefits can report their wages initially by calling Social Security either at the local office or the national toll-free number, or they can submit pay stubs by mail or in person, or simply send a letter or visit the office to report that they're working when they start a job. Now, calling Social Security to report wages should only be done when they're first reporting that a job has started. If they're reporting after the first month of employment, then they can submit their pay stubs to the local Social Security office either by mail, by delivering, or if the local office recommends it, by faxing pay stubs. Now, technically, pay stubs are only required for Title II during a work review. But if a person submits their pay stubs, that'll help verify their wages accurately. Now, a person can also report continuing wages through a My Social Security account. This is an account online. You can find a link to it on the homepage for Social Security's website, www.ssa.gov, and there's a My Wage Report feature that lets you report wages monthly online. This cannot be used for the first time you report when a job starts, but it can be used after the first report for a job. How about SSI? Well, a person on SSI who first starts a job, just like a person on Title II benefits, can call Social Security, their local office, or the toll-free number. They can visit the Social Security office or mail a letter reporting that they're working for the initial report of the job. After the first month, they can submit their pay stubs by mail, in person, or by fax if the local office recommends it to the local Social Security office. They can use the My Wage Report feature of their My Social Security account, just like people on Title II, but again, not for the first report of a job, only subsequent reports. They could also, for SSI, use the automated telephone wage reporting system or a mobile wage app reporting system, though neither of those can be used for the initial report that person's just starting a job. Now, if a person gets both Title II and SSI benefits, and they use most of the methods to report, they need to report to two different people. One, the Title II representative, and the other, the SSI representative. But if, after their initial report of the job, in subsequent reports they use the My Wage Report feature of the My Social Security account, that will cover wage reporting for both Title II and SSI at the same time, and the person will not have to report twice. Now, to report wages for DHHS benefits, there are 4 ways to do it. You can use the My Bridges system, either online or by phone, call the DHHS caseworker, use the DHS 2440 form, that's the change report form, or go to the local office to report the earnings. So let's get into some details about wage reporting methods. First off, whenever a person reports their wages, they should request a receipt to prove that they reported. Sometimes wage reports get lost by the agency that receives them. And if you've got a receipt to prove that you reported your earnings, and then later you want to get an overpayment waived, you've got a much better chance because you'll have proof that you reported the wages, even if Social Security or DHHS lost the record of the report. So, for Title II and SSI, as mentioned, a person gets either Title II or SSI or both. When they first start a job, they can either call the national toll-free number or their local SSA office to report that they're working. They can use the My Wage Report feature of the My Social Security account to report wages for Title II or SSI or both, but not for the first report. The initial report, they've got to call, submit their pay stubs, or send a letter, or report in person. But after that initial report, they can use the My Social Security account and the My Wage Report feature of it. But first they have to open a My Social Security account. So they can go to www.ssa.gov/myaccount, or just go to the ssa.gov homepage and find the easily identified link for my Social Security account and follow the instructions to open the account. And one advantage to this is that a person who gets both Title II and SSI, known as a concurrent beneficiary, can use My Wage Report to report their earnings just once, and it'll record for both Title II and SSI benefits. They don't have to report their wages twice. Now there's a fact sheet called Details about Wage Reporting Methods for SSDI and SSI that has more details about this. And that document looks like this. And this will be available to you outside of the webinar as well. So if a person chooses to report their wages by submitting their pay stubs for Title II or SSI or both, they can use that method anytime, the first time they report a job or any time after that. And they can submit their pay stubs either by delivering them in person, by mailing them, or if that local Social Security office recommends it, by fax. And you can find more details in the details document that was just shown. A couple of other options exist for SSI that don't exist for Title II. There's the SSI telephone wage reporting model or system and the SSI mobile wage reporting system. Again, these are only for SSI. They let a person report their wages electronically, either through an automated toll-free telephone line or a mobile app on an Apple or Android device. Now, it's worth discussing some more details about who can and can't use the telephone or mobile wage reporting apps. So who can't use either the telephone or the mobile wage app reporting systems for SSI? Well, obviously, people who don't receive SSI can't use it. People who are hoping to get work incentive deductions, particularly IRWIs, BWIs, and PASS. Although a student who's using only the student earned income exclusion can use the telephone or mobile wage reporting systems. If a person is subject to deeming, that means if they're married and their spouse is not eligible for SSI but has income and or resources, or if they're a child under 18 living with at least one parent, and the parent is not eligible for SSI, then a portion of the parent's money can count against the child's SSI, just as a portion of a spouse's income and resources can be counted against the SSI of a married person. Then the telephone or mobile wage app reporting systems could not be used. If the individual works for more than one employer in a calendar month, it can't be used. If they're self-employed, it can't be used. And if they're not working, it can't be used, but there would be no reason because there would be no earnings to report. So who can use the telephone wage reporting system? Well, people who were not disqualified from one of the reasons on the previous slide could be eligible to use the telephone wage reporting system, but they must also be able to speak their first and last name clearly, be able to understand and follow instructions given by the automated system, be able to speak or enter on their telephone keypad their dates of birth and social security numbers for the individual and perhaps representative payee or spouse. they need to be able to call from a quiet location because the automated system will get confused by background noise. And as said a moment ago, they can't meet any of the reasons in the previous slide that would make them ineligible for using the telephone wage reporting system. So who can use the mobile wage reporting system? Well, if a person was not disqualified by one of the reasons from 2 slides previous, then they have to have an Apple or Android device. They have to download the SSI mobile wage reporting app. They have to be able to understand and follow instructions given by the automated system. And that's it. They don't have to be able to speak clearly. They don't have to be able to hear. So mobile wage reporting is a great option for people who have speech impairments or who are deaf. So when does a person need to report using the telephone or mobile wage reporting app? What time of the month? Well, they have to report within the first 6 days of the calendar month after the month that they're reporting wages for. If they miss that deadline, then they can't use the telephone or mobile wage reporting system, and they'd have to use one of the other models, like submitting their pay stubs for that month. The next month, if they get it done on time by the 6th day of the following calendar month, then they can go ahead and use the telephone or mobile wage reporting app again. So to use the automated telephone wage reporting system, a person should call 1-866-772-0953 and follow the instructions. To use the mobile wage reporting system, again, they have to have an Apple or an Android device. They have to download the SSI mobile wage reporting app and then follow the instructions. And you can find more details in the details document. Now, to report wages for DHHS benefits, the most reliable and efficient way to do it is using MyBridges. This can be done either online or by telephone. To report online, go to newmybridges.michigan.gov and register to create an account, or to use the telephone method with MyBridges, just call 1-888-642-7434. And a confirmation number is given each time you report any changes, wages, etc. It's good to keep the confirmation number, keep a record of it as proof that you did report, even if the system loses the information. So a few exercises. Mustafa receives SSDI and has just started a new job. What are his options for reporting his new job to Social Security? Now you can pause and look at your quick guide and then return with your answer. The answer is he can call either his local office or the toll-free number. He can mail a letter to his local office or visit his local office. Secondly, Mustafa continues working in his job. He earns $1,083 a month gross wages, and he's in his trial work period. Should he be reporting his earnings to Social Security? And if so, what are his options? So please pause and return with your answer. And the answer is yes, he should be reporting his earnings because he's earning over $880 a month, enough to use trial work period months. His options are he can use the My Social Security account, the My Wage Report option within it. He can mail or deliver his pay stubs to the local office or fax them if the office recommends. And he should request a work review. Now, Aki receives SSI and just started a new job. What are his options for reporting his new job to Social Security? Please pause and return with your answer. Aki can call his local Social Security office or the toll-free number, mail a letter to the local office, or visit the local office. That's what anybody who gets Title II disability or SSI benefits should do for the initial report of a new job to Social Security. Now, Aki continues working in his job. He earns the same wages every week. Should he report his wages to Social Security? If so, how often? And what are his options for reporting his wages to SSA if he receives SSI benefits? Please pause and return with your answer. The answer is yes. He should report his wages to Social Security every month. A person on SSI who works should report their wages every month. And so it should be done monthly. His options are to submit his pay stubs to his local office by mail, in person, or by fax if the local office recommends it. Or he could use the My Social Security account, the My Wage Report option. He can use the SSI telephone wage reporting system or the SSI mobile wage reporting system if he meets the criteria that we outlined earlier. Now, Lucy receives SSDI and a Medicare savings program. She just started a new job. And remember, Medicare savings programs are administered by DHHS. So what are her options to report her job to DHHS, and how soon should she report the job to DHHS? You can pause now and return with your answer. So Lucy can either use the MyBridges system online or by phone, which is the most reliable way to report earnings. She can call her DHHS caseworker. She can use the change report form, the DHS 2440 form, or she can go to the local DHHS office to report her earnings in person. And she should do this within 10 days after getting her first paycheck. Lucy continues working in her job, and 6 months later, she gets a raise. Should she report the raise to DHHS? If so, what are her options to report the raise to DHHS, and how soon should she report the raise to DHHS? So please pause and return with your answer. She should report the raise to DHHS. She can use any of the same options that she used to report her initial, to do her initial report that she was working. The MyBridges system, online or by phone, that's the most reliable way. Call her caseworker, use the change report form, or report in person. And she should do it within 10 days after getting the first paycheck that shows she got a raise. Now, how about work incentives? How should work incentives use be reported for Title II benefits? First off, if a person is interested in using specialized work incentives, and if they might be eligible, such as IRWIs and subsidies, you should always refer them to a benefit planner for assistance. And the forms and documents that should be used would be provided by the benefits planner. There's a work activity report for employees called the SSA 821 form, and there's a link on this slide to get that form. This enables a person to report ERWIs, subsidies, and special conditions when they start a job. It's items 5, 6, and 7 on that form. And this is a form that Social Security will usually send the person during a work review anyway. The person should keep receipts or other proof of payment for all impairment-related work expenses. If they may be using subsidies provided by an employer or unsuccessful work attempts, they want to document those with the SSA 3033 form. That's called the Work Activity Questionnaire, and this is completed by the employer. If there's a supported employment provider that's providing job coaching, which is a kind of subsidy known as a special condition, then a letter from the supported employment provider should be used to document that. Now, if work incentive use changes, you can use a form. It was created for this purpose, though it's not an official Social Security form, called the Change in Wages or Work Incentive Status form, which you'll have access to, that can be used to show those changes. And that form looks like this. It's helpful to use this form to report changes in work incentive use to Social Security. How should work incentives be reported for SSI? Well, we created a student earned income exclusion request form. This is the form that can be used to request the SEIE if a person is a student under age 22 who's regularly attending school or a job training course. They would be eligible for the student earned income exclusion. That request form looks like this. Not an official Social Security form, but they'll accept it. The change in wages or work incentive status form that was just shown previously can be used to report ERWIs, BWIs, and changes to work incentive use, just as it was used for Title II work incentives. For ERWIs and BWIs, a person should always keep receipts or other proof of payment to show that they did pay, in fact, for those expenses. So how often should work incentives be reported? Well, for Title II, work incentives are not reported until after the trial work period ends. During the trial work period, no other work incentives will be relevant. But if a job starts after the trial work period is over and gross wages are near or above SGA, if a person has work incentives such as ERWIs and subsidies that could keep their countable wages below SGA, they should be reporting that. Now, if they continue a job or and their gross wages continue to be near or above SGA, they should report work incentive use to make sure that they keep their countable wages below SGA if relevant. If their work incentive use changes, if they're adding, deleting work incentives, or if the amounts they're paying for work incentives or the amount of job coaching they're receiving, for example, should change, they should report then. They should always report during a work review, also known as a work CDR for work continuing disability review. Now for SSI, work incentive use can be reported when the job starts, when work incentive use changes, and whenever Social Security requests it. So we're talking about a fair amount of paperwork. People need to keep these forms, receipts, and other letters and other documentation. It helps to have a benefits binder to keep either a paper folder or an electronic file to record all of the documents related to their wages and work incentives. And that includes copies of all pay stubs or other earnings reports, the forms related to work incentives, letters as well that document work incentive use, receipts, confirmation pages for faxes, for wage and work incentive reporting to Social Security, the confirmation numbers that were received when reporting wages to MyBridges, to DHHS, notes from phone calls with agencies that administer benefits, any other documents that the person sends to Social Security or DHHS, and any letters or documents that they receive from Social Security or DHHS. These should all be retained in a record. So what if a person follows all of these tips and they still end up being overpaid? Well, first thing you should do is refer them to a benefit planner. If they get an overpayment notice, they should always be referred to a benefit planner. The benefit planner may be able to assist them to perhaps use work incentives retroactively, and to request that benefits be adjusted if appropriate to avoid or limit overpayments. The benefits planner can help with all of these things. So if a person is being overpaid and you've informed them that they're being overpaid, they continued to receive Title II benefits when they should have stopped, or they're continuing to get SSI payments that are too high, even though they should have been reduced, what the person should do is save the overpaid funds and not spend them. If they could set those funds aside, then when they get that overpayment notice, they'll be able to easily repay the overpayment painlessly. Now suppose the person receives benefits like SSI or Medicaid that have resource limits, and saving the overpaid funds could cause their resources to go over the limits for their benefits. Well, in that case, they might be able to use an ABLE account to deposit the overpaid funds for safekeeping, because the funds deposited into an ABLE account will not count against the resource limit. Although for SSI, it's only the first $100,000 in an ABLE account that doesn't count as a resource. But remember that to be eligible for an ABLE account, a person had to have become disabled before age 26. Although the person could open an ABLE account at any age, they could be much older than 26 when they open the account, there has to be evidence that their disability began before age 26. So what is your role as a benefit to work coach in helping people with wage and work incentives reporting? Well, first, you should always explain the need to report wages and work incentives to people you serve. Let them know the options they can use for reporting. You want to remind them to report, follow up to be sure that they have. But it's not your responsibility to report for them. If people want to use or are already using specialized work incentives like IRWIs, subsidies, the student earned income exclusion, blind work expenses, or PASS, always refer them to a benefit planner. And if they get overpayment letters or it appears that they've been overpaid, even if they haven't received a letter yet, refer them to a benefit planner as well. Now, you may be collaborating with the benefit planner to document some of the work incentives, especially subsidies and special conditions, sometimes IRWIs. And you can see the webinar on identifying and documenting IRWIs and subsidies for people who get Title II to learn more about how you can collaborate with benefit planners to document those work incentives. Thank you very much for participating in this webinar.